I found this webtoon called Little Lady Mint, and it's in the fantasy genre, and it looks kinda normal, right? Wrong. It is allegedly the worst webtoon ever, but I will be the judge of that. This webtoon has 10.8 million views and 8.5 stars, so surely it can't be that bad. Before we even get into the episode, we're hit with a viewer's discretion, which is never a good sign. And we're hit with another viewer discretion, which is just great. All the other brats are getting sponsored and leaving this place. Yeah, you're already 15 and no one's taking you, you useless wench. So it's clear that she's 15 and an orphan, which is obviously sad. We then get a flashback to a day before, and she's in a carriage with a rich person, and obviously she's thinking something has gone terribly wrong. She asks herself, why am I riding in a carriage with someone like him? In all 15 years of my life, no one has expressed interest in taking me. So why would a noble pick me? Choose me. Love me. He explains how she'll be taking the last name. But guys, remember, this is an adoption. And they refuse to use the word adopted. They use words such as sponsored or fostered, as if that's gonna make what's possibly gonna come more acceptable. Not only was the guy who sponsored her, a noble, but he was also a knight, because of course he is. But I've been saying this again and again, it's not adopting. He's just given her her last name, they're gonna constantly be fed and possibly even educated, but it's not adopting. As we seen in the first panel, Mint, which is her name due to the color of her hair and eyes, which are important to the story, she's clearly been abused, and her maid then decides to tell the knight about all the scars on her back. And of course this wouldn't be a webtoon if the main character wasn't constantly pitying herself. There's no way someone like you would sponsor a girl like me. No one who visited the orphanage even glanced my way. We then get another flashback within a flashback. Is this Inception? Episode then ends on a cliffhanger of us seeing Mint in the past. Before we get into episode 2, I'd like to comment that the art style is really good, but why is she drawn out like a toddler? This is meant to be a 15-year-old.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
But back to the story. The man who owns the orphanage, and who's also the guy who's been beating Mint up, has been invited to a dinner, and naturally she's shooketh. But how worrisome. She's already 15 years old. 15 years old? I'm not gonna lie, that made me laugh a bit, because how on earth was he just adopting a kid without even finding out their age? I was wondering why he took interest in this wench. Perhaps he's just a creep. Which is crazy, because they say that there's a possibility, there's a universe that exists where adopting someone could be creepy. And this is coming from the morally corrupt guy. I thought she was 11-year-olds at most. I didn't include this bit, but the guy basically says, oh, she's a bit old to adjust to high society. And Blondie clearly wants him to elaborate more, since he actually wants to get to the bottom of the abuse that she's been going through. After all, this is the reason why I summoned you here. And that's the end of episode 2. So far, it's not too creepy. In fact, you can give it the benefit of the doubt and even say it's almost fatherly vibes from him. Blondie starts off by saying something a parrot would say. For now, go back to your room. I have something to discuss with the director. Then he says something creepy. That scrawny child is already 15 years old, you say? I was just a little surprised that such a scrawny child is only 7 years younger than me.
Police! Police! Help! Police!
This means he's 22 years old. That's a crazy sentence to say. It's almost as if the writers are trying to gaslight you into believing that it's completely normal and the age gap isn't that bad. But some of you might say maybe it's still not weird. He then goes to say, I should treat her as a lady, not a child.
Police!
She's still a child, and I don't care about historical accuracy. If she was considered a lady in this time period, why would she be in an orphanage? In fact, the morally corrupt guy even says he was waiting for her to turn 16 so he can sell her off. Even this abusive man can't fathom selling a 15-year-old off because she's still a child. Fast forward, Blondie gets the guy arrested. What I find interesting is how the people reading this genuinely thought this was a wholesome family webtoon, until episode 3 when they started getting a weird sixth sense. This comment says, yeah girl, the confidence, the story is progressing well, but only 7 years of age difference? Why do I feel like this is not going to be a warm family story? Instead, it will be a romance. Same, I'm worried about that also. I really like stories where the noble takes in an abused child and helps them heal with their trauma and grows into an independent person. I'm gonna be really sad when or if this turns into a romance and drop it then. I'm a little worried about how they keep recalling she's 15 and only 7 years younger than Mr. Julius. Like, I'm trying to hope this won't become a love interest, because if they waited until she's an adult, emotionally she won't be until much later. Emotionally, she's been treated like an incapable kid, making her not emotionally mature for a 15-year-old. And also sponsoring a girl and later on making your wife. It's screaming. Not okay, fam. So now I believe we've got enough of the backstory for their relationship, and also a general world building. So now let's skip all the way to the last two episodes. So, firstly, we need a bit of context. It's been 3 years since episode 1 and 2, and Mint is now 18 years old, and she went from this to this in only 3 years. Also, in the second last episode, she travels back in time because, of course, she has powers, and the person who she's talking to is the kid version of this guy from the start. And to make a long story short, Min saves the blonde guy and heals him because he was temporarily blind, and then travels back to the future to see the blonde guy and gives her a hug. Obviously, as someone who literally just skipped the whole season, I'm a bit confused, but we move on. Mint is approximately 20 now, since there's another 2 year time skip, and the episode opens up with a familiar sense as the orphan is in a fancy carriage questioning why she's been chosen. The only difference is that Mint wouldn't be a romantic interest to a kid, since it'll be weird, right? I mean, who on earth would do that? We learn that the war has ended in the past episodes, and Mint wants to help children with the foundation, and the blonde guy is retired. So, the big question, was he a pedo? Honestly, I don't know the answer. They don't really give a definitive ending of if they end up together or if she ends up with other love interests. But the novel that this whole webtoon is based on ends up actually having them end up together, which is weird. But the adaptations don't always follow the novel exactly, so we don't actually know since it's over now, and I think the writer just kind of left it up to you. If you want them to be together, they are, but I still think even leaving it as like an ambiguous ending is problematic in its own right. But that's the end of this. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I didn't, and if you're still here, that's crazy. Subscribe and bye.